Hi, Armchair Artist here. Today I'm going to paint this mouse in a cornfield. The painting revolves around corn, so the first thing I had to do was to paint an ear of corn, and here you can see I'm doing it on a funny dark background. I don't know why I chose that colour, perhaps to see what colour the corn would turn out against a dark brown background when I'd finished. But I've soon reverted to doing it on a white background, and here you can see I'm taking my time putting in the little seeds and dividing them all up, putting light bits on and dark bits on, just really seeing what works. At the end of the day, it's about creating an illusion, and just by going round and round these seeds, erasing what doesn't work and emphasizing what does work, I've finished up with getting something that looks something like an ear of corn, or barley I think it is in this case. To do this ear of corn I used a technical brush from the inking range and a grunge brush from the texture range. Now you can see I'm putting the whiskers on to the barley, or I don't know what they're called, probably called barbs. Once that was done, I decided to copy and paste it and see what it would look like in situ, made smaller of course, because from the back these are going to give it some depth, so they need to look smaller from the back. So now you can see I'm copying and pasting a row all across the back. My intention is to do this on several layers. That'd be 3 bands of corn going across the field, across the painting, and those will get, each band will get slightly larger as they come forward, and as they recede I will reduce the opacity in each layer to give that illusion of depth and distance. You may have also noticed that in the background now I've got various other marks and tones of colour. I've done this with various brushes, the airbrush, the grunge brush and the burnt tree brush from the charcoal range. These all seem to give different marks, but it splits up the background and gives you the illusion that there's something else going on behind the corn, because those ears of corn will look a bit stark just on their own. You will also notice that as you get towards the lower part of the painting, which will be the foreground, that is darker in tone than the top of the painting, which is lighter, which again gives a sense of depth. You'll perhaps also notice that another ear of corn has turned up. I just copied and pasted that one, but once I'd got that one separate, I changed it a little bit, made it darker between some of the seeds, so that I had 2 pieces of corn to play with now. And as I put the next row in across the back, whereas the first row were all light coloured corn, as I go through the next layer I make them slightly larger, and I intersperse the original ear of corn along with the new one, so I get a variation of corn as it goes across the field. At this point I did have to apologise, because I can't actually show you a painting of the mouse because I did a silly thing. I like to use my own reference material where possibly, but I hadn't got a picture of a mouse in a cornfield, surprisingly. My next port of call is Pixabay, which have provided me with some beautiful images in recent times. However, in this case they failed to provide me with an image that I liked. To resort to taking a photo of 2 different mice in a book and then joining them, cutting them in half and joining them together to get the actual mouse I wanted. But that meant that I couldn't use them in this video. I had inserted the pictures onto the top of the painting as I was doing it, not realising that they'd show up at the end, so I've had to ditch them, but along with that went the actual painting of the mouse, so my apologies for that. I always think it's good to avoid any sort of copyright infringement. After putting in the 3rd band of corn, I decided to have a go at the poppy, and it's just a generic shape of a poppy, and I used 3 different colours of red and just shaped it round into something that I thought would look like a poppy. It's surprising how easy it is to do a poppy if you use the grunge brush on the very small setting and just use it to put in various tones of red. I think I used about 3 in this poppy plus 1 for a little bit of highlight, but you soon get something which is acceptable as a poppy. And once that is done, the next thing I did was to, same as with the corn, was to copy it and paste it, and then I could put them in place. I put one towards the back and placed it between a couple of layers, then I put another one on the left hand side, and then I did 2 which are going to be closer to the foreground, and because they're going to be closer to the foreground I altered one of them to make them look as if they're 2 separate poppies, not just the same one copied. The most important thing about this type of image is to make sure you keep a lot of separate layers, and then you can move things about at your will. If you blend all the layers together or put everything into just a couple of layers at the beginning, you'll find that later on you'll start to get into trouble. So the more layers you have, the better. See, I'm now messing about with the background layer and the poppies, just trying to get everything into the right position, and now I've started to put a stalk onto some of the ears of corn. The ones at the front of the picture, I have found which layer that piece of corn is on and actually added that stalk to that separate piece of corn. Then if I want to move the corn, the stalk will go with it, and the same the one behind. I've done the same with that one. All the rest that you can see in the background, they're all on 3 separate layers, and I'm not so bothered about moving any of those individually because they're in the background. You can see at the moment now I've started putting some stalks to some of them, but I don't like the way they go, and I decide that the stalks need to go all the way to the bottom. So you'll see that very shortly I take those stalks off and redo it again. You'll see that the stalks are going over the top of the piece of corn at the front, and that's my original ear of corn, along with the one on the right hand side, the 2 big ones. And it doesn't matter about the corn being behind those stalks because of course it is on a separate layer, and you can see now that all the rest of the stalks are going over the top of it. Well, I should just take that layer, that piece of corn, in a moment, and I shall move that to the top of the stack of layers, and once I've done that, that piece of corn will then come back to the foreground because that's where it's going to finish up in the end, and you'll see that's happened now. Some people out there, the purists, who might consider that copying and pasting these bits and pieces all over the painting is cheating. Well, I don't consider it cheating. I have an image in my mind that I want to create, and I get there the easiest way and the way that brings me the most joy. I painted the original ear of corn, and I painted the poppies, and I painted the mouse. All I'm choosing to do is to spread them around the picture in an easier way. I still have to decide which way the corn's facing and the background and the rest of it, so it's my way of creating a picture, and there aren't no rules as far as I'm concerned. So you can see now I've placed the mouse in his final position and given him a couple of pieces of corn to stand on. I've got him in that position because it's basically on thirds. That's one of the rules you're supposed to adopt, but it looks better in that position as far as I'm concerned. It looks pleasing, and it looks as if he's going into the picture rather than out of it. At this stage I'm just filling up the foreground of the painting with more ears of corn, and at this point I darken the background as well, and you can see that that actually emphasises the corn very well. The next thing to do is just go around all the pieces of corn and make sure they've all got a stalk or a stem that actually attaches them to something. There's nothing worse than seeing a piece of corn floating around without anything to hold it down. Once I've done that, I've put in a few more grass-like hairs coming off the barley in a lighter tone to brighten it up a little bit, and that's about the whole painting done. A few bits of the grassy hairs going in front of the mouse and a few going over the front of the poppies in a short while, and you can see that that's about it. And then I sign it, and that is the painting completed. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I shall have another video along shortly, and please let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching.